Chelsea are the winners of the UEFA Champions League and have beaten Manchester City in the final 1-0. It's your match review and it's World of Football. The reason Manchester City lost is because of Pep Guardiola. It's as simple as that. Pep Guardiola bottled it. I'm sorry, but he bottled it. He let his team down and he let the club down. If you're watching this video and you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, don't be like that. Subscribe right now so you can see more content of this quality. Let's go. Because he overcomplicates things. When things are just supposed to be simple, he overcomplicates it. And it's not the first time he's done it. Last season, they got knocked out in the quarterfinals against Lyon. They were a much better team than Lyon, but because Pep Guardiola overcomplicated things, his team got knocked out. Pep Guardiola plays with a 4-3-3 formation. When he versed Lyon last season, he changed from 4-3-3, he went to 3 at the back because Lyon were playing 3 at the back. As a result of that, his team got knocked out because they couldn't adapt to the shape that they were playing, and they versed Lyon who have perfected that formation and perfected that shape. He overcomplicates football. He overcomplicates things, and that was a result. And that's what happened against Chelsea. Overcomplicated things. I mean, he made decisions that were appalling. Even at the time when I saw that decision, before the game even played out, when the team news came out and the team news said that Manchester City do not have Rodri or Fernandinho in the team, you can go and look at my Twitter account. I tweeted and I said, Pep, I hope this does not come back to bite you, because to play a Champions League final with not one defensive midfielder is almost suicide. That is one of the worst decisions I've seen from Pep Guardiola. It's worse than him changing to go 3 at the back last season against Lyon. It's worse because a lot of managers do that. But to play with no defensive midfielder, I've never seen it happen before, guys. Look here, Pep Guardiola played, I think that Manchester City played about 60 games, and every single game Manchester City played this season, he played with a defensive midfielder. Come the biggest game of the season, playing the most toughest opponents in a Champions League final, this is the sole game that he decides, I don't need a holding midfielder. That is suicide. I'm sorry. And one of the things that I can think maybe he thought that is because Chelsea play with a low block. Chelsea defend deep and Chelsea hits on the counter attack. So when a team defends deep, you need to make sure that you can break that low block down. And one of the ways you can break down a low block is to commit more numbers forward, to commit more bodies forward. So that most probably was his thinking. I don't need a CDM because I'm playing against a team that are playing with a low block. They are parking the bus, and so I don't need a CDM. But what he forgot is that Chelsea are one of the best in counter-attacks. Chelsea scores so many goals through counter-attacking transitions. So many goals. It's Man United, Chelsea, Liverpool. These are the 3 teams that are the best at counter-attacking. And I would say Man United are probably the best because of our personnel. We've got faster players, we've got more direct players. And I think we've got better players than Chelsea to play on the counter-attack. Liverpool, you know, they are extremely good on the counter-attack, but their game doesn't revolve around counter-attack. They can also break opposition down, but they are good in counter-attack. Man United's game revolves around counter-attacking football. But Chelsea are still a good counter-attacking team, a very good counter-attacking team, where they have Timo Werner that can run and penetrate the open spaces, and when Timo Werner runs, no one can catch him. They got Kai Havertz who can hold the ball, and that was Kai Havertz's duty in that team. Thomas Tuchel said he played Kai Havertz because of height. So why you play Kai Havertz is that he's a focal point up front. So when you are relieved from your pressure, when you win the ball back in your half, you ping the ball and Kai Havertz will bring the ball down. He'll hold the ball up for Timo Werner and Mount, and that's what they were doing. From the first couple minutes, Chelsea were counter-attacking Manchester City, and City could not handle it. One of the reasons they could not handle the counter-attack was because they had no defensive midfielder. It is suicide, guys, to not have a defensive midfielder. Suicide. I saw Pep Guardiola play in the Premier League against the three worst teams that got relegated in the Premier League. That's Fulham, West Brom and Sheffield. All three of these teams got relegated. And I saw Pep Guardiola throughout all those games that he played those teams. All the games he played, the three worst teams in the league that got relegated, he played them with a holding midfielder. All of a sudden, he's playing one of the best teams in Europe, the best team in Europe because they made it to the Champions League final. He plays the best team in Europe with no holding midfielder. That does not make sense. I'm going to say it again. Pep Guardiola played the three worst teams in the Premier League that got relegated with a holding midfielder. He decides to play the best team in Europe with no holding midfielder. There's no sense in that. There's no sense in that. And that, I'm sorry, but that is one of the worst decisions I've ever seen. To not play with a holding midfielder. The role of the holding midfielder in Manchester City's squad, Fernandinho plays it perfect. Is that's the player more like he's the insurance policy of the defense. When Manchester City turn over when they get turned over and they lose the ball, he's the guy that puts out the fires. The fires is the counter-attack. He puts out those counter-attacks and he does it game in, game out, and he does it to a world-class level, and he's one of the best in doing that. So before the teams can penetrate and attack their defense and beat the defense and attack the keeper, he stops it. It stops at him. He's the insurance policy of the centre-back. So before the teams can get to the centre-backs, they have to get through Fernandinho. So he puts out the counter-attacks. How does he do it? You'll see him winning tackles, you'll see him winning duels, you'll see him nicking the ball off opponents. Or the other way that he does it a lot is by tactical fouls. Many times you'll see Fernandinho make a tactical foul. Very few games Fernandinho goes without a yellow card because he makes tactical fouls. He'll pull a player or he'll clip a player because he's preventing a counter-attack. Because in that situation, if the team succeeds, their likeliness of them scoring is very high, so he stops that. Against Chelsea in the final, they had no one to stop that. There was no insurance policy, so whenever Chelsea got the ball, they were looking at John Stones and Ruben Dias eye to eye. Eye to eye, and John Stones and Ruben Dias were defending one-on-one. Who, for me, that's a dangerous situation in and of itself to defend one-on-one like that. Like that is dangerous. But I understand the big teams all do it. Liverpool, when they had Van Dijk, they were defending one-on-one. You have to have that ability to defend one-on-one. City do it to an extreme level, don't get me wrong. But you need an insurance policy in front of you. You need someone that can break up the counter-attack. You need someone that can put out the fire. They did not have that. I don't know if Gundogan was supposed to be playing that position or supposed to be doing that role from time to time, but Gundogan's performance positionally was awful. Awful. And this is not... I don't ever get to say this about Gundogan because he's such an intelligent player. He's what Pep Guardiola said, he's one of the most intelligent players he's managed. He's so intelligent, he's so good, but in this game, his positional play was appalling. So that's the first thing that Pep Guardiola got wrong, is not playing with a defensive midfielder. That is suicide. I don't care who you're playing. As I said, it made no sense that he goes in the Premier League and he plays the three worst teams in the Premier League with a defensive midfielder. He plays the best team in Europe with no defensive midfielder, a team that excels in the counter-attacks. And when you know you got defenders like John Stones, who's not a good defender. The only reason John Stones looked good this season is because he was carried by Ruben Dias. But by himself, John Stones is not good, and in fact, every single player for Manchester City was poor. Not one player can pick their head up and say, I performed well. Not one player performed well. And when that is the case, guys, you can have a few players playing off. You can have one or two players that are just having a stinker. But when you have 10 players, outfield players that are all playing poorly, you have to look at the manager. And it was because of the manager. So number one, Pep Guardiola not playing with a defensive midfielder, that caused his downfall. Number two, including Raheem Sterling in the starting lineup, playing Raheem Sterling. Everything good that Manchester City done this season, winning the Premier League, making it to a Champions League final, everything good they done it without Raheem Sterling. They done it without Raheem Sterling. So we've seen Manchester City win league titles this season, win league titles, go to a Champions League final without Raheem Sterling. Pep Guardiola decides, I need Raheem Sterling. For the biggest game of the season, I need Raheem Sterling. To get to where they got to in the Champions League, they done it without the help of Raheem Sterling. But Pep Guardiola decides, this is the game I need Raheem Sterling. A player that I did not need, now I need him for the biggest game. Raheem Sterling is out of form. Out of form Raheem Sterling, Pep Guardiola included that player in a Champions League final. Out of form Raheem Sterling. When Manchester City more or less wrapped up the league, they started playing Raheem Sterling. I think they started for the last 3, 4, 5 games or so forth, they played Raheem Sterling. And in each of those games, Raheem Sterling was the worst player on the pitch for Manchester City. The worst player on the pitch. It's not like he built up his form and he was, moving in an upwards projection where he was picking up form and going into the Champions League final with a bit of form. You could see that he was improving his performances. That was not the case. That was not the case. In the Premier League, the games that he played towards the tail end, he was shocking. And Pep Guardiola decided, I need this guy. First of all, guys, even his form is out of form, but he doesn't even have the ability anymore to play for Manchester City. His technical ability to play for Manchester City is like to play for Real Madrid and Barcelona. You have to be a technical player. You have to have ball control. You have to have ball manipulation. That's the basis to play for those teams. Raheem Sterling's technical ability is so bad. It's the worst in the team. It's the worst in the team without a shadow of a doubt. Someone like Zinchenko has better technical ability than Raheem Sterling. You look at the way Raheem Sterling controls his first touch and look at his ball control. It's appalling. There were times in the game where Raheem Sterling, if he had a better first touch, he could have went into a position where Manchester City could have created a big chance. He did not create that big chance because his first touch was off. There were times when he was running with the ball towards Reece James, and Reece James just stood in front of him and got the ball away because the ball is never under control because Raheem Sterling does not have technical ability. Raheem Sterling's technical ability is low. His footballing IQ is low, and his decision making is the worst that I've seen. At Manchester United, we accuse Marcus Rashford of having poor decision making, but Marcus Rashford's decision making, as poor as it is better than Raheem Sterling. Raheem Sterling is not good enough to play at the level where Manchester City are right now. I get that Raheem Sterling was pivotal in Manchester City's former years when they were winning titles in previously. Raheem Sterling was one of the main players. I get that, but let us never ever forget he was scoring a lot of back post tap-in goals, and for that I can't give a player so much credit if he's for scoring those back post tap-in goals, because other than that Raheem Sterling's performances were not good, were not at the level that his numbers were saying he was. Like Raheem Sterling's numbers, his goals, and the level of his performances, they sit like this. They don't match each other. They don't match each other at all. And so where Manchester City are right now, the level that they are at right now, Raheem Sterling is not good enough for them. So I think Manchester City need to make up their mind on Sterling this summer, and I think they need to sell Sterling because he's no good. It's not like just form, guys. It's not about form. Like a player, I'll give you an example, Kevin De Bruyne, he hasn't been fantastic this season. There were games where he's out of form, but he still has the ability to play for Manchester City. He still has the skills and the talent and the ability, the technique and so forth. Even Bernardo Silva still has the technical ability to play for Manchester City. Whereas you look at Raheem Sterling, he just doesn't have it. And so they need to make up their mind. Personally, I feel that they might do a case whereby they go for Harry Kane and they include Raheem Sterling in a player plus cash deal where they give Sterling to Spurs and they probably put a 80 mil on top of Sterling to get Harry Kane. That's what I feel they need to do, but they need to get rid of Raheem Sterling. So one of the two wrong. The first decision was not playing with a CDM, and the second decision was including an off-form and not good enough Raheem Sterling, who had an appalling game. Could not beat Reece James not once, had a bad game. And the third thing that he got wrong was that he had no form. He moved his best players out of position. Gundogan was one of Manchester City's best players this season, one of Manchester City's most influential players this season, and Manchester City's top goal scorer. The top goal scorer, Pep Guardiola decides to play the top goal scorer furthest away from the box. Furthest away from the goal, he decides to play the top goal scorer. That makes no sense. He moved Gundogan's position away. Where Gundogan was most influential this season, Pep Guardiola moved him out of position. Another player was Phil Foden. Phil Foden's best performances this season for Manchester City came from the left wing. He decides to move Phil Foden into the false 9 position. And as a result of that, he was moving players around in their position, and the attacking players had no idea what positional zones they needed to take up on. That's why they were getting confused with each other, and there was no shape from the attacking points of view in Manchester City. There was no shape because they did not know where they must play. It was a horror show from Pep Guardiola. This is the worst performance I've seen from Pep Guardiola. The worst game plan that I've seen from Pep Guardiola. Overcomplicated things. Whereas if he just stuck to his normal 4-3-3, if he just continued with Fernandinho in the center and playing with Bernardo Silva and Gundogan beside him, and playing with Kevin De Bruyne as a false nine and playing with Foden on the left, I believe Manchester City could have done something to Chelsea. I believe they could have tried and won that game. But in no points in that game from minute 1 to minute 90 did Manchester City ever look like they were going to score. They did not. Horror show from Pep Guardiola. He has to take that blame, and I hope that he goes before the squad and apologizes to the squad and apologizes to the club, because he overcomplicated things and he was the sole reason they got knocked out. Every player performed poorly because his game plan was poor. I'm sorry, but I hope from their points of view they can go again next season. It's not going to be easy because teams are going to be back. Liverpool will be there, Chelsea will be there, these teams will be there, Inter Milan will be there, they got a good side. So Bayern Munich will be there, PSG will be there. So it's not going to be easy next season, but they need to go into the transfer market. They need to get a striker, because that business of a false nine is nonsense. You need a goal scorer in your team. The only way a false nine works is if you've got Leo Messi playing in the false nine, or if you've got two wingers that are 25 goal wingers. Like Liverpool got Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane that score 25 goals a season. Then a false nine can work. But when your wingers are not scoring 25 goals, Mahrez Foden or Mahrez Sterling or Bernardo and Sterling, whoever it is, they're not scoring 25 goals. So when they don't score 25 goals, you need a goal scorer. You can't rely on midfielders like Gundogan and Kevin De Bruyne to carry the burden of goal scoring. City need to go out and get a striker. They need to go out and get another midfielder. There's rumours of Jack Grealish. I would say they need to go and get that deal, because they did not replace David Silva. You can't lose players like David Silva and not replace him. It just doesn't work like that. So, guys, that's my analysis of the game. Manchester City analysis, because I like Pep Guardiola. I support Pep Guardiola. I love what he's about. And it was sad, a moment for me when he let his team down. That's my match review, guys, on Manchester City. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed to this channel, and I'll see you for more content on the Euros. Peace.